Tensions are quietly rising among the world's most powerful nations over control of one of Earth's final frontiers. The Arctic, the frozen crown of our planet. Once seen as a desolate wasteland of ice and silence, it's now becoming the stage for a new kind of global rivalry. In Washington, President Donald Trump once spoke of acquiring Greenland, a bold signal of America's growing interest in this icy realm. Far across the pole, Russia is already several steps ahead, modernizing its Arctic military bases, expanding its radar networks, and fortifying airstrips once thought long abandoned. Its presence here is no longer quiet, it's strategic. Meanwhile, China, though far from the Arctic Circle, is carving its own path through the frozen seas. Massive ice-breaking vessels cutting through ancient ice, searching for new shipping lanes and new opportunities. Three powers, three ambitions, each moving carefully, each testing how far they can go. But beneath these grand strategies, a shadow game is unfolding. Spies from several nations, quietly operating in the world's most remote corners. And now, one by one, many are being exposed. The Arctic, or the North Pole, remains one of the most mysterious regions on Earth, a place where the ocean wears a shifting sheet of ice, and no flag truly flies. Legally, it belongs to no one, but politically, everyone wants a piece, because beneath the ice lie vast reserves of untapped oil, gas, and minerals, resources that could shape the next century of global power. And so, in the world's coldest arena, a silent contest for dominance has begun. Each nation claims to protect its interests, but what they're really protecting is the future. In today's USMag feature, we journey to this frozen battlefield to understand what's truly at stake as the balance of power shifts beneath the Arctic sky. Because here, in this vast expanse of ice and silence, the race for control isn't just about territory or trade routes. It's about survival, influence, and the fragile peace that keeps the world's coldest frontier from burning hot. This is USMag. In the far reaches of the Arctic, a new race has begun. A race not of explorers or scientists, but of nations. Rival powers are quietly competing for control, and once again, the world finds itself on the edge of a new arms race. In Washington, President Donald Trump made his ambitions clear. He expressed his desire to bring Greenland under American control. A move, he said, that was vital not only for America's national security, but also for the safety of the entire world. He claimed it wasn't a sudden idea, that it had been discussed with him for years. But why Greenland? Why would a remote, icy island, home to barely 56,000 people, become the focus of global power politics? The answer lies in its geography. In the Cold War era, nuclear weapons weren't just symbols of destruction, they were the foundation of deterrence, a balance of fear that kept two superpowers from total war. And the shortest path for those missiles to reach their targets was through the Arctic sky. That's why, at the height of the Cold War, the United States built a massive military outpost in the northernmost part of Greenland. It was known then as Thule Air Base. Today, it carries a new name, Patuxent Space Base. At this isolated station, an enormous radar structure stands tall, like a silent sentinel watching the heavens. Its gaze fixed northward, tracking anything that moves in the void above. Officials stationed here say the system can detect even the smallest objects drifting through orbit, some no larger than a tennis ball. The Cold War may have ended, but the importance of this frozen frontier has not. Even today, it remains a vital link in America's ballistic missile early warning system, the network designed to protect the U.S. from surprise attacks. Recently, President Trump unveiled his vision for a new line of defense, a system he called the Golden Dome. Similar to Israel's Iron Dome, it would intercept enemy missiles before they ever reached their targets. But for such a system to work, early warning sites are essential. And in that strategy, Greenland holds unmatched importance. Its location makes it a perfect forward military outpost, one that could serve both defensive and offensive roles in any future conflict. As Arctic analyst and former Australian defense official Dr. Elizabeth Buchanan explains, to the United States, Greenland is more than just an island. It's a strategic lifeline, a geographical insurance policy for American territory. That's why it has always been seen as the country's first line of defense. But this growing American interest hasn't gone unnoticed. In Moscow, concerns are mounting. Russia fears that the expansion of U.S. missile defense systems could weaken its nuclear deterrence, a cornerstone of its security for decades. And this tension is spreading beyond Russia. Even within NATO, European nations are beginning to worry. They wonder how the alliance will cope if one of its strongest members, the United States, pushes its own claim over Greenland, potentially reshaping the Arctic balance of power. The Arctic, once a frozen wilderness beyond politics, is now a chessboard of ambition and defense, a place where the ice hides not just history, but the future of global power itself. Rising tensions in the Arctic, a silent power struggle beneath the ice. The Arctic, a frozen frontier where silence hides a growing storm. This region, blanketed in ice and mystery, is now emerging as one of the world's most strategic battlegrounds, not for open war, but for power, presence, and control. Russia stands as the most dominant player here. Nearly 1/5 of its landmass lies within the Arctic Circle, and more than half of the Arctic coastline belongs to Russian territory alone. So when the discussion turns to expanding military presence in the Arctic, no country feels the weight of that tension more than Russia, because no nation stands to be more affected by what happens here. While Western powers have largely stepped back from the region, Russia has moved in the opposite direction, steadily reinforcing its position through years of investment, infrastructure, and quiet military buildup. One symbol of that expansion lies in Nagurskoye, an airbase that has existed since the Cold War. Once remote and outdated, it has now been upgraded to handle massive aircraft, even in the harshest, coldest environments of the far north. But it's not just about airfields. The Kola Peninsula, located deep in the Russian Arctic, serves as home to a large part of Russia's nuclear submarine fleet. These submarines, stealthy, silent, and deadly, slip beneath the Arctic ice, vanishing into the cold depths, awaiting orders. When the command comes, they are capable of launching nuclear strikes from beneath the frozen sea. To Moscow, this fleet represents far more than military equipment. It's a pillar of its nuclear deterrence, a crucial shield of national defense, and a statement of power. According to the head of Norway's intelligence service, Vice Admiral Nils Andreas Stensonis, the balance of power has shifted once again. With Sweden and Finland joining NATO, the Baltic Sea has become a much tighter, more restricted zone for Russian military operations. As a result, Russia's northern fleet has gained new importance, becoming more vital to Moscow's strategic reach than ever before. Stensonis explains that Russia now relies even more heavily on its nuclear deterrent, with a significant portion of its arsenal stationed on the Kola Peninsula, deep in the Arctic. Yet even Moscow seems to recognize a hard truth. Keeping tensions in the Arctic low may ultimately serve its own interests. Because a heavily militarized Arctic would bring more pressure to an already strained Russian military, one still locked in a long and costly conflict with Ukraine. In the far north, a silent tension is growing. Russia, a nation with deep roots in Arctic history, is quietly strengthening its military presence here. It's not just a show of force, it's a statement. Moscow believes the West is expanding its own military footprint in the Arctic, and that belief is fueling unease. Experts say the concern is real. As Norwegian intelligence chief Stensonis warned, the danger of rising tensions here is genuine. Norway continues to call for calm, urging all sides to avoid escalation. But not everyone shares that optimism. Other nations, particularly in Europe, are voicing deeper fears. Fears that what's unfolding in the Arctic could push the region into a new era of confrontation. A recent Danish intelligence report issued a stark warning that Russia might soon try to project power through intimidation and aggressive posturing. And if that happens, the Arctic could become more unstable than ever before. There's another place where these tensions feel even more delicate: the Svalbard archipelago, a cluster of icy islands tucked deep within the Arctic Circle. Under an international treaty, Norway governs Svalbard, but the treaty also allows several countries, including Russia, to operate there. Now, Russia is voicing concern, saying the region is being slowly militarized, and that this transformation from neutral ground to strategic zone poses a direct threat to its own security. It's a subtle warning, but one that speaks volumes, because in the frozen silence of the Arctic, Every radar installation, every airfield, and every military move carries a message. And as the ice melts, those messages grow louder. The question is, will the world listen before the Arctic becomes the next fault line of global power? This is part one of our deep dive into the Arctic power race, where silence hides strategy and ice conceals ambition. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video from USMag. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think the future of the Arctic really holds.